Welcome to Place and Experience. Indulge your senses with immersive game titles. Boost the excitement with our engaging promotional tools and generous network promotions. Be in control with XI Viewport Management Tool and experience seamless gameplay powered by X Platform. Enjoy Place and Experience as our partners do in over 20 regulated markets. And get ready to go big. Big play is on. Placent.
Well, we are live after a couple of little hiccups, I think, there, Nico. Welcome, one and all, to a very special episode of your Next.io weekly news. Why is it so special, Connor, you ask? Well, as you may know, today's a public holiday in Malta, which means many of our colleagues are away enjoying some well-deserved time off, and we are left to produce the show on our own, which is why there was a little bit of a delay in the first opening videos, which I apologize for. But Nico, I've tested it. I have my little YouTube open here. I can see that we're live. So I'm quite satisfied that everything's going to be just fine. Let me say right at the top, thank you to Place and for sponsoring this episode once again. And Nico Jansen, CEO of Bet It Best, my good friend, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So you're just listening to the other half of the dynamic powerhouse duo, just flexing a little bit. So we are back in shape. And as you might have guessed already, there's a public holiday, a bank holiday in Malta. There is a public holiday in 2 states of Germany, but take no days off. It's the one narrative I'm living my life with. And I'm happy being once again on the show with the one and only, the other half of the gruesome twosome duo, Conor Mulhere. Conor, how have you been? It looks like you had some stressful days writing some articles on your own with your dynamic team as well. So it has been a quite intense week, hasn't it?
Intense is right, Nico. Yeah, we're going to get into that in a few minutes. We had a pretty crazy news day yesterday. You know how it goes in any industry. Sometimes you have a quiet patch, and then sometimes, just like buses, 2 big M&A acquisition deals come along at the same time after you've waited months for them. So we had billions of pounds, billions of dollars worth of acquisitions floated yesterday from Flutter, and we're going to talk about all of that in a little bit more detail. But of course, Nico, it wouldn't be weekly news without the weekly roundup of the biggest stories of the week. I don't have a timer ready to go because I don't know how any of this works. I'm terrible with technology, but I'll time you in my head. You got 5 minutes for your 10 in 5. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Born ready, mate. So Sportradar accelerates towards breaking 1 billion revenue mark. The Nasdaq Sports and Betting Technology Group published its financial results for Q2 trading, registering a 29% year-on-year revenue growth from 216.4 million to 278.4 million, which is a difference of 62 million and 29%. Carsten Curl, Sportradar CEO, said, "Our strong second quarter results, including another quarter of record revenues, demonstrate the operating momentum we are generating across our business and the clear execution of our strategies to outperform the market." Heading over to the UK, as Evoke posts H1 losses of £140 million. This statement follows the LSE Gambling Group publishing interim results showing H1 losses after tax of 143 million, which is a 300% increase compared to the 2023 losses of 32 million pounds. As noted by Group CEO Per Widerström, the return on our marketing, primarily in the UK online, was lower than expected, leading to an online marketing ratio of 25%, which was higher than planned. We have put in place a new and experienced commercial leadership team and marketing leadership team, and we are transforming the way we plan and undertake our marketing. Still staying in numbers, as Q2 2024, RakeTech EBITDA falls 20% amid efforts to stabilize performance. So affiliate business RakeTech reported revenue of 17 million euros in Q2 2024, which is a 3.4 decrease compared to the same quarter in 2023. The company's EBITDA also saw a significant drop of 20% year on year, coming in at 4.4 million. Now, an official statement, a comprehensive business audit was finalized in connection with the end of the Google update, Swenson said. This has led to several initiatives around enhanced content focus and broader audience, technical product improvements, SEO optimization, and full focus on our experience. And now just briefly talking about Flutter as they triple Q2 net profits. Publishing its Q2 accounts, the NYSE listed gambling group highlighted that it outperformed all market consensus, generating corporate revenue of 3.6 billion US dollars, which represents a 20% up of the 2023 comparatives of 3 billion US dollars. Headline growth was underpinned by Flutter's portfolio of global brands, servicing a customer base of average monthly players of 14.3 million, which is an up of 17% like for like number, which is 12.2 million. And just for you to have a comparison, Bet365 is serving 85 million customers globally on a monthly basis. So now you know a little bit about the numbers of Flutter as well. Now, finally, an update on the story as Evolution in Georgia axed 1,000 job as strike caused a permanent damage. Evolution is cutting 1,000 job at its Tbilisi facilities in Georgia in response to an ongoing strike, which it says has significantly impacted its operation in the country and eroded customer confidence. Official statement reads as follows: the recent illegal actions initiated by one of the local unions have hindered Evolution's ability to operate in Georgia and has hurt Evolution's customer, many of which no longer wish to operate their tables from Georgia, Evolution said. Now, Flutter CEO Jackson labels new Illinois betting tax structure wrong. During the Flutter Q2 earnings call, company CEO Peter Jackson did not hold back his feelings about Illinois lawmakers both upping the tax rate and introducing a tiered tax structure with heavier tax burden for the most successful operators. His official statement reads as follows: I do think that introducing a graduated tax system that punishes those who have invested the most to grow their businesses is wrong. I think it will drive customers to offshore operators or potentially to onshore operators who are offering unregulated and untaxed prop parlays under the guise of sweepstakes, said the company CEO Peter Jackson. Now heading over to DraftKings, as a lawsuit over misleading risk-free wagers has been dropped by the plaintiff. Now, though, DraftKings has got a bit of good news coming its way after Samantha Guri, who alleged in a lawsuit that DraftKings has misled her and others with its risk-free promotions, has decided to drop the case against the betting giant. At the time, Guri argued that the amount offered by DraftKings as a risk-free wager did not match the deposit amount, thus misleading customers. Getting back to Europe, as KSA warns online gaming providers over payout delays, the Dutch gambling regulator Kansspelautoriteit KSA has contacted operators over alleged breaches of the country's rules and on payouts after a probe found that 13 may have failed to comply with license requirements. The KSA has ordered all 13 providers to confirm in writing that they do not impose minimum withdrawals amount or other requirements. And now it gets quite funny, as Austrian player has been ordered to return winnings over unlicensed gambling. The player losses saga has taken a turn over a customer who was ordered to return their winnings to an unlicensed and unnamed operator, as both parties were found to violate the Austrian gambling laws. The player argued that the request for repayment was an abuse of law because the operator was aware both parties were acting illegally. Guess what? But court documents say gambling laws in Austria did not include protective provisions for either the player or the illegal operator. Official statement reads as follows: every contractual partner can evoke the illegality or nullity of the contract, the court documents say. And last but not least, another story on DraftKings, as they have sent mass email raising cybersecurity concern. An unexpected dead heat reduction email sent by DraftKings raised concern among customers of the popular betting and gaming operators. Guess what? There was an email sent out, and after receiving the email around 10 p.m. on Tuesday, many DraftKings customers rushed to access their accounts through the app on the operator's website. This resulted in a temporary crash of DraftKings services for several minutes, which data from Down Detector revealed. So this has been my 10 and 5.
Very nicely done, Nico. You take a deep breath, especially the Austrian story. I think maybe in another week we'll have time to look into that in a bit more detail. The operators fight back. They say, well, if you can sue me for what you lost, guess what? I'm suing you right back for what you won. Yeah. So very unexpected situation going on in Austria, I think.
Yeah. The tables have turned. The tables have
turned, exactly. But as we mentioned at the top, and as you can see, our big main story of the week is all about Flutter Entertainment, and they've made so many headlines this week, Nico. Even in the 10 in 5, I think we had 2 Flutter stories in there, and now we've got about 3 more Flutter stories to come. They have been very, very busy. So I want to set the scene for you a little bit. What happened on Tuesday this week? All this Flutter news started to kick off when my own colleague Sonia Lindenberg, the one and only, one of the finest reporters in the iGaming sector, she exclusively revealed that Flutter was considering making an offer for Brazilian-facing brand Betnacional. So, according to industry sources, Flutter had already made a formal offer to acquire the brand, which, by the way, Nico, is actually owned by a UK-based group called NSX Group. So it was founded in August 2021. So it's been operational for a few years, obviously specifically targeting the Brazilian market. NSX Group also has its own proprietary sports betting platform, which when it first brought that out, it offered it to several operators, eventually decided, no, we're going to use that exclusively for our own brand. So it has other brands, including Mr. Jack, PagBet, and BetPix. And despite, obviously, the company itself being based in the UK, NSX does have strong ties in Brazil. It has teams in Recife and Sao Paulo, so very much a local presence. We know that's going to be important when it comes to getting a license in Brazil. You're going to have a local office and local employees. So It wasn't immediately clear because we have no official confirmation yet. We don't know if we think it's an offer just for the Betnacional brand, not for the whole NSX group. I think when you think about an operator like Flutter Entertainment, they probably don't need to buy a proprietary sportsbook tech stack. I think their tech's probably pretty good. So we haven't had any official confirmation. I think it's just for the brand. But I was very, very proud of this story that Sonia wrote. That was picked up by Bloomberg, The Times, Yahoo Media, some real powerhouse mainstream media outlets. So massive shout out to Sonia for breaking this exclusive. Absolutely amazing work. But let's dig a bit deeper into who is Betnacional and why would Flutter be interested in a brand like this. Well, according to Blask, which is a relatively new data service provider in the iGaming industry, they have something called the Blask Index, which helps you to estimate the market size and market share of several global iGaming markets, Brazil being one of them. Blask estimates that Betnacional is currently the 5th largest operator in Brazil, with an estimated market share of around 7.3%. Obviously, that's quite a small proportion, Nico, but we know just how big this market is already and how much bigger it's going to get in the future. I think one of the big things a lot of operators are doing in Brazil are signing lots of sponsorship agreements with sports teams and leagues and all this, and Betnacional already has. It's merged with a brand called TV Bet, and it's secured the naming rights for the Brasileirão Series B, replacing Betano. By the way, I think Betano is currently one of the biggest brands in Brazil. Anyway, that's not important. What's important is Betnacional. So, obviously, we don't know the price, but when the Times, I can't remember if it was Bloomberg or the Times, but they credited Next.io with breaking this story. They obviously did some research of their own, and they think it's going to be worth about £1 billion. So could be a massive transaction. Now, to put a bit of colour into, obviously we understand why Flutter would want to buy itself inorganically, expand its reach in Brazil, but it's not that unexpected because it's something they've been talking about for some time. So earlier this year, Peter Jackson said that the PokerStars and Betfair brands had been doing quite well in Brazil and said that organic growth would be very important for Flutter. But he also said that M&A could play a role in accelerating growth in the region, which obviously is what seems to be happening now. And if we look back as well, we got some great stories from JMP Securities back in April. They went to a dinner with FanDuel CFO David Jennings, and then they reported some insights after that meeting, and said that they expected Flutter to invest in a local hero brand to enhance its market presence in Brazil. And would you look at this? This is from April. Quote, in our view, M&A will be on the table with several larger local brands operating in the country already, including companies like Betnacional and Betano, whereby Flutter can leverage its technology, doesn't need the tech, and balance to improve the scale to a bit of a business with local ties. So I think this has been on the cards for some time. We've got an indication now that it's happening. Obviously, Flutter reported their Q2 results yesterday. We wondered if there might be some commentary, but they're still keeping their cards pretty close to their chest. Again, Peter Jackson said, I think we're reasonably well placed with our Betfair brand. And of course, we also operate PokerStars there as well. But he did say, we are ambitious. We like to have podium positions, and I really would like to have gold medal positions. So obviously, He also said that Flutter has had organic success in lots of markets, but the M&A remains an essential tool for growth. So, he said, we will work out what we want to do in Brazil, and when we've made a decision, we'll let the market know. So what he's saying there is, leave us alone, pesky reporters at Next.io. Stop telling everyone our secrets. Anyway, big shout out for Sonia for breaking this story. It's absolutely one we're going to watch very, very closely from here on out. We'll bring you more detail as soon as we have it. But Nico, you know what these things are like. There's a lot of negotiation takes place and things that people want to keep off the record for the meantime. So hopefully we'll get an update on this deal pretty soon, and we'll get some insight into the price. I think 7% market share for £1 billion. I don't know. Does that sound fair? I don't know. What do you think about all this?
So first of all, the market shares in Brazil, if you compare the market share or the free floating market share in the US, because usually the dynamic dual, so it's mainly a duopoly market with FanDuel and DraftKings taking a big bite, 75-80% of the overall market. And then the best of the rest the best of the rest market, the 20-25% is just shared within all the others. So that's why even a market share of roughly, if I'm not mistaken, 8.3, 8.4% is quite significant compared to other markets. In Brazil, Betano is leading the market with 25.1%, followed by Bet365, roughly 16.5%, then Sporting Bet with 9.4%, and Esportes da Sorte with 8.8%. So they are gaining a significant role within the Brazilian market. And of course, they are just diversifying their portfolio. And it just seems that the Brazilian market, with the market leader having 25.1%, and they are pretty close with the roughly 8.4, 8.5%. So they can catch up, and everybody knows competition keeps you in condition. So as said, Flutter is just diversifying their overall portfolio. And I'm pretty sure within the next couple of calls, we will just see even the vision where they will, roll out their overall strategy, etc. But of course, it seems like they got deep pockets. And they are just spending their money wisely with the upcoming market of Brazil. And as of now, it's sports betting only. But there might be iGaming, so slots as well. And they're just positioning themselves to actually, convert existing sports betting players to become slots players as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Nico. And I guess we'll see what happens in Brazil when the regulations come into effect. I think we're expecting licenses from early next year. And we'll see what the impact is when it comes to the grey market versus the licensed market, because, of course, the conditions that are set out in the Brazilian regulations are not the best in the world for operators or for customers, actually. I'm going to tie all this together because just like a market that you've mentioned, well, here's one thing. Brazil's going to have a surcharge on winners, isn't it? Because they're going to charge a tax on winnings. Now, here we go, you see, seamlessly tying it all together, Nico, because you mentioned the US and you mentioned DraftKings. And yesterday, like I said, Flutter's been hitting the headlines left, right, and centre because it can't stop making these statements. So they put their own spin on what had previously happened with DraftKings and its suggestion that it was going to introduce a surcharge on winning customers in high tax states. Nico, I know you love tax and you've been following this one very, very closely. You're a tax enthusiast. Why don't you fill us in on the latest?
So, as already mentioned last week, within the 10 and 5, yes, DraftKings was playing with the idea of introducing a surcharge on high taxed states. So states who have a taxation more than 20%. And during the earnings call of Flutter, Jackson also addressed questions around US betting rival DraftKings, who obviously announced a plan to introduce a winner surcharge in 4 high-tax states from January 2025. And his official statement was, "We have no plans to introduce a surcharge to winners," which Jackson has told analysts on the Q&A session. Guess what? DraftKings immediately announced, first, let me get things right. So just after they announced it, DraftKings issued a statement indicating that it would not proceed with the surcharge plan as well. They said on X, "We always listen to our customers, and after hearing their feedback, we have decided not to move forward with the gaming tax surcharge. We are always committed to delivering the best value in the industry to our loyal customers." Guess what? If Flutter would have decided also to put a surcharge on their winning customers in the high-tax states, I'm pretty sure we would have not seen a statement of DraftKings on X. So that was quite interesting to just read this. And if I'm not mistaken, Conor, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Robinson, so the CEO of DraftKings, also made this statement within his earnings call, but I might be wrong. So, of course, if you're speaking to analysts who are sharks by default, of course, they want to hear statements like, "Hey, of course, we will tax or put a surcharge on our customers in high tax states." So that was, if I'm not mistaken, Conor, and as said, correct me if I'm wrong, that was during the DraftKings earnings call. And as of now, we just see pretty much the opposite statement within the Flutter statements call. And of course, DraftKings just needed to urgently, correct their statements, their earlier statements, as this would have put them into a very, very bad spotlight if your competitor is not aiming for any surcharge. So why would a customer then just sign up with your sportsbook? So that was quite interesting to just see the movements. And of course, to give you an insight on what you really want to listen to, as each and everybody of you just loves numbers. So Flutter reported a 20% increase in revenue for Q2 2024, reaching a 3.6 billion and exceeding analysts' expectations, which had been 3.4 billion. And the adjusted EBITDA also rose by 17% to 738 million, with a margin of 20.4%. And just to give you a little bit of, also comparison as well, just look up the EBITDA margin of Evolution, and then you know what 20.4% EBITDA margin actually means in the gaming space. If I'm not mistaken, the EBITDA margin of Evolution ranks within the 70%, so 70% EBITDA margin. Or to quote our all-loved friend of Todd Haushalter, he's like, "Hey, Nico, once you actually hit the 100 million revenue bar, it's a piece of cake, a walk in the park." So shout out to you, Todd. This is how Evolution and their business actually was, the pride of Sweden. And there you just see how difficult it is for other companies to actually have a high EBITDA margin. And just getting back, as the US revenue grew by 39% of Flutter to 1.53 billion, which is driven by a 41% increase in sportsbook and 47% in iGaming. And just for you to know, there are roughly 36, 37 states where sportsbook is allowed in the US, while iGaming is just allowed in 6 or 7 states. So even this could be, or this could even be more of a revenue driver as soon as more states in the US will allow iGaming as well. And the US average monthly players, AMPS, grew by 27% to 3.47 million as well. And as said, if you just want to look up some more numbers, don't hesitate to go on next.io and just read through the masterpieces which have been put together by our awesome journalists as well. So that's it of Flutter. And yeah, they have hit the news just this week, and we could just be talking all over Flutter, but it's quite interesting. So what's your take, Connor, on the, hey, we will put a surcharge on all our winning customers, and then out of a sudden, we've just been quoted wrong. Of course, there will be no additional surcharge for our beloved customers.
My question for DraftKings, Nico, is if you're saying now that you're pulling the surcharge because you listen to your customer feedback, truly and honestly, how did you expect your customers to react when you told them you were going to put a surcharge on their winnings? What did you think they were going to say? Oh, brilliant. Please. Yeah, I'd love that. Please take $1 off every $5. That's fine. No, of course, we could all see it coming. There was some, I think what's surprising is how quickly, for such a big business and such a, I know like they're kind of, these are like the new generation of businesses. They're not like legacy businesses like we have here in the UK, for example. They're relatively new, but it's surprising sometimes how quickly they can actually bring something in and then scrap it straight away. And like they're, it's obviously reasonably flexible for such a kind of giant company, which I guess could bode well for the future, but it hasn't been DraftKings' best week. You mentioned in the 10 in 5 as well, the outage that took place because of an error, a marketing email sent to too many customers in error that flooded the website with too much traffic and went down. It's just not been their week. And meanwhile, their main rival, their only real, sort of peer in the industry, which is FanDuel and Flutter, seem to be going from strength to strength. So not the best week for DraftKings. I'm sure some customers will be pleased that there's no surcharge coming, but I think there's a chance that some damage has been done anyway just by mentioning it. It kind of doesn't make the brand look like a very customer-centric, customer-first brand. It kind of looks a little bit selfish, I guess. And yeah, I just think, well, if you're getting rid of the surcharge because of customer feedback, what feedback were you expecting? I'm sorry, but I'm not saying I can see the future, Nico, but in my book, if you tell someone you're going to take money off them, they're not going to be very happy, usually. Anyway, how much excitement was that? And wait, there's more. This was the crazy thing about yesterday. We'd had the Betnacional offer on Tuesday. Flutter results come on Wednesday. Here, Peter Jackson says no DraftKings surcharge. And then straight after the earnings call, we had Sky News reporting that Flutter was in talks with Playtech about another acquisition worth £2 billion for the B2C Italian business, Snaitech. To me, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. There's so much going on. Surely not. How can they be doing both of these £1 billion acquisitions at once? But there you go. It's a big company and they can do that. So straight after Sky News reported that, Playtech quickly put out a very quick statement confirming it, and it said the following: Playtech confirms it is in discussions with Flutter and has granted Flutter a period of exclusivity to complete due diligence and finalize the necessary transaction documentation. That to me sounds like very advanced talks. There can be no certainty that any transaction regarding the potential sale of the Snaitech business will ultimately be agreed. Of course, we don't really know, but Nico, that sounds very advanced. To complete due diligence and finalize the necessary transaction documentation. So What's all this about? Well, it's a £2 billion acquisition of Snaitech, which is one of the largest gambling operators in Italy. It's a B2C brand, and it competes directly in Italy with Sisal, which was, of course, acquired by Flutter not that long ago. So Flutter has skin in the game of the Italian market. This would help to build up its presence there. Just to give you a bit of background, Playtech purchased SNI in 2018 for 846 million euros. So you think, well, 6 years later, oh well, it's more than doubled in price because it's up to £2 billion, they're saying. But it's a pretty big earner because the subsidiary reported just shy of 950 million euros in revenue in Playtech's 2023 financial report. So full year revenue is approaching €1 billion. And according to data from Statista, SNI had a 13% share of the Italian online gaming market in December 2023. So that puts it in about third place behind Lottomatica with 21% of the market and Flutter's Sisal brand 15%. Guess what? I know you love numbers, Nico. Sisal's 15% plus SNI's 13% is 28%. That's more than market leader Lottomatica with 21%. So if Flutter completes this acquisition, straight to the top market leader in Italy. The question, I guess, is it anti-competitive to take 28% market share via an acquisition? But I think they asked the same question with the Sisal acquisition. Anyway, that was just a really crazy day for news. It was very hard. We didn't get a chance to stop yesterday because we were reporting all this stuff. And absolutely, I have to say to the listeners, do go to next.io if you want the full detail on all these stories. Just type Flutter into the search bar and you're going to see 5 or 6 headlines from the past week or two, and all the latest developments on what is, Nico, let's face it, quite an exciting company in the sector. You know, it seems to me a few years ago when I joined the kind of iGaming industry and started working with this stuff, it seemed like Entain and Flutter, or Paddy Power Betfair as it was known at the time, and Ladbrokes Coral or GVC Holdings. God, they've had a lot of names, but they were kind of equals for a while, I think. And now Flutter has just had such a strong strategy, obviously driven by, as we saw before, $1.5 billion revenue in the US from FanDuel. They're now looking at becoming the market leader in Italy with a single acquisition. They're looking at buying the, what was it, third or fifth biggest brand in Brazil, and adding a third brand to their portfolio because they already have Betfair and PokerStars active in Brazil. I mean, they are just absolutely dominating at the moment. It's quite, well, if nothing else, it's kind of entertaining to watch, Nico. They're just absolutely off to the races.
Indeed, they are. Indeed, they are. And if you just compare it, first of all, this just showcases how fast moving our industry actually is. Like 2 weeks ago, we just talked about the Apollo Global, right? Hijacking IGT and Every merger at the same time. So also we're speaking about, buying companies worth 6.3 billion. And you're like, hey, we're doing a due diligence of buying the one asset, the folks, they are already working 24/7. Why not just put a little bit of more due diligence on there? And they know how to crunch numbers. So get it done, right? So this is what they're actually doing. And as you mentioned, Flutter taking over a company which bought Betfair, etc. So M&A activities have been going on within our industry for quite a long time. Or just, take a look at what Evolution bought within the last just 2 or 3 years. It's very, very interesting how money is actually spent by the big dogs within our industry, and it always and as mentioned so often, first of all, you're restructuring debts to actually free some cash, and just a couple of months later you will hear about a story that a company XYZ actually bought something else. But getting back on the Italian piece which you just dropped, I don't know Lottomatica, because they recently just bought SKS 365. So within the numbers we mentioned, or you mentioned, I don't know if the SKS 365 is already calculated within the market share. So you just see there's a very competitive market in Italy based on Lottomatica and their power, and that Flutter is also positioning themselves within that same market as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up, Nico, because it just occurred to me. According to the information I have, correct me if I'm wrong, Flutter is already the biggest gambling company in the world by market cap. According to companiesmarketcap.com, we're looking at a £28 billion market cap, followed by Las Vegas Sands in second place with £23 billion. So if they're looking at adding an extra £3 billion worth of new businesses to the portfolio, it just makes that gap even wider. They're going to be the biggest gambling company in the world, but they're going to be like 50% ahead of second place. So it's just massive. And Evolution is more like £15 billion. So it's going to be like half the value of Flutter. It's just absolutely crushing it, you know? So what can I say? One thing's for sure, Nico, we will be following up on absolutely everything we've covered today, because at the moment we've just got the very first indications that all this stuff is going on. We're going to bring you more detail as soon as we have it. But we've been on for 45 minutes now, waxing lyrical. I think it might be time for us to let our listeners go and say that we'll see them here same time, same place next week. But no, there's more, Nico.
Yeah. There's more. As already dropped last week, we have an update on the German based story of Bet3000. So 2 weeks ago, their license had been taken away. Last week, there was a ruling of a higher court in Germany as well that they can open up their shops once again, while they need to keep their online business closed. And usually then rumors start flying around, as everybody is just waiting for the official and underlying commentary of the court's decision, which I had access to, and it just reads so much fun. As guess what? The ruling of the court, the higher administrative court of Magdeburg, was based on the possibility of Bet3000 losing their 250 shops, which would put them into a very, very bad spot, especially as within the new distance requirements in Germany, you are not allowed to operate a sports betting shop close or in the radius of 500 meters to the next shop. So guess what? As soon, and based on the contracts, usually the license holder, as Bet3000 has with their franchisees running the shops, reads as soon as the shop holder is not able to proceed or keep on running the shop, the contract expires. Same applies if the license holder is not able to operate the shop anymore, as the license has been revoked. So as soon as anything within these two businesses happens, of course, the shop holder are contacted by all the other license holders in Germany as well. as they offer with their shop at a very interesting location. As said, 500 meters, there will be no shop allowed besides you. That's why, of course, they argued like, okay, but our 250 shops are on the line. And that was a quite interesting ruling because, and we don't know yet for sure, the German regulator, the GGL, just decided on revoking the license as Bet 3000 did not fully attach and keep on using the regulators' softwares as Lugas and Oasis. But as said, it's quite interesting that they did not fight the decision based on the decision of GGL based on what has been wrong or what has not been wrong, but just based on the 250 shops on the line. And that was quite interesting ruling. But as said, we will just see as soon as this official court ruling will hit the news. I was just a lucky Nico being able to have a little bit of a peek into this official ruling. And guess what? As soon as any news worth sharing hits my inbox, of course, I will share it with you, our awesome listeners.
Thank you, Nico. That is fabulous. It's nice to get a little exclusive sneak peek of what's to come in Germany. Well, I think it's the end of the line. We better say thank you to Place and to our other sponsor, Hub88, for keeping us coming back every single week. Speaking of which, we will be here at the same time, at the same place next week. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And Nico, last but not least, certainly not least, thanks to you for joining me once again. I'll see you next week.
See you next week. And always a pleasure. And thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Tens of thousands, dozens of Hub Market partners, an industry-leading Hub wallet, and just one API. Hub88 is connecting businesses to a world of limitless content where the possibilities are endless. Hub88.